Welcome, everybody, and happy Monday. I hope it's a happy Monday. I hope you had an excellent weekend. I hope you got to relax a little bit. I hope you got to do all the things on the honey-do list or whatever you wanted to do. I'm envious of you guys sometimes because my workload increases on the weekend, and I find those traditional type of questions about the weekend. They just don't apply to me very much. So I'm like, I'm kind of but Monday is a slower day for me when you guys are all back at work. So I guess it evens out. We all have our pros and cons of what we do, right? I'm excited to be with you guys again. I'm always excited because I noticed somebody recently that I interviewed. I guess it was last week. She made a comment on something I had posted about I have the best guests and I need to get them all together in one location, which is not a bad idea. A pretty tall task, but a pretty cool idea. And I was like, you know what? I do have the best guest, and I get to show you that again today. So I'm excited to introduce you to my friend and our guest, Susan. Let me tell you what her bio says, and then we'll let you, or excuse me, I'll let her tell us a lot about who she is as we go along. Susan Glusica is a unrivaled realizer, like that. She humanizes the fastest path to inviting in and receiving more money because she is a stand for unapologetic prosperity. Susan's clients quickly add money to their bank accounts without more hustle, being their worst critic, or trying to outthink the problem. In 2018, after a successful 20-year corporate career and 8 years of helping people directly with their financial plans, Susan discovered the seven energetic levels of money consciousness and created a powerfully practical method for 2 to 3 timesing your and wealth meaning and joy as a wealth mentor for fempreneurs. Fascinating. Susan, I'm so glad you're with us today. Welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Absolutely. I will tell you guys, I met Susan, gosh, maybe a year and a half ago.
Yep, that's right.
And without going too deep into the weeds, Susan was kind enough to do a couple of what we would call, I guess, discovery calls type. She was getting into my head a little bit, my thoughts about finances and such. And it is fascinating because I learned not only through Susan, but in some other avenues that we really are the results of our past and how we respond to those things. But we'll get into that in a minute. But I wanna highly suggest Susan because she really opened my eyes to some things that I needed to overcome and some mindset work that I needed to really go through and break through. So I say all that to say this is somebody that's highly qualified to do what she does. But we'll get to the professional side. Susan, one of the benefits of, I mean, this has really been, I don't even know if you know this, but like I launched this group 7 months ago and it's approaching 11,000 members. I mean, God has done amazing things with this. And I love it because people are watching around the world now. Susan, tell us what part of the world you live in. What corner of the universe are you in?
I'm in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania in the northern Poconos. It's a four-season resort area, very agricultural, so a lot of space, not so much noise, although they've rerouted some plane routes, and so now we get a little bit of airplane noise above us. But other than that, it's really lovely living.
And for those of you guys watching that don't know exactly geographically where she's at, she is in the States, by the way, for you guys watching outside the States. And I don't know why, Susan, when I think of you, I don't think about the Poconos. I think you're further east than that. So I'm glad you've reminded me that how far, give us proximity to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so about a little over 3 hours north of Philly. hmm
Okay, so you're not far from the New York line at all.
No, about 2.5 hours straight to New York City.
Okay, Pennsylvania's a big state.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
for sure. And tell us about your family that's there with you.
Right, so I am married for over 23 years, and we have a cat that we adopted from the dairy farm across the road. We do not know how genetically she came to be because she is a Norwegian forest cat, and they call them blue, but she looks gray. And she's beautiful, very long-haired, and very smart. And so that's our little family here in our what I call Prosperity Palace.
And you guys, I know you guys like to travel as one of the things you do for fun. Would that be accurate? Like you like to travel a couple times a year, if not more?
Yes, we like to actually take all of September, which is our anniversary month, and go to our place in the Mediterranean, and where we have family and friends, and we can do things like diving. We got married underwater, so until recently, scuba diving was something that we greatly enjoyed, although we haven't been doing it much since my medical challenge at the end of 2024. Just because the last time we were there the weather didn't bode well for it's always dicey to go to the Mediterranean in September because that can start the bad weather, cold winds, rainy season. So we didn't have a lot of good weather days, and we would go diving no matter what. But the locals tend to be pretty picky as to when they go on the water or under the water.
Oh my goodness. That sounds like a great time to get away for September and go to the Mediterranean. Are you able to tell us a little bit about the health scare?
Oh yeah, sure. It's out there. I posted it on social media a couple times. So I had in I guess it started in November of 2024, but we did not know what was going on. I had a subdural hematoma, which is the slower going one, and it got to the point where um, my the bleed was so vast that my it was squeezing my brain over to the right side of my head, and it's called a midline shift. And this is one of those, but for the grace of God moments, and God is great. And I was actually in the process since that summer of 24 to become a Roman Catholic. My husband's Catholic, has been asking me to come over to in full communion to the church since we got married. And I just finally said yes. So it was a very interesting juxtaposition of that going on with this medical crisis. And basically, it got bad. It got like I was slurring words. I was losing ability to strengthen my like I couldn't write, my handwriting was getting so weird. I couldn't remember my passwords, like things like that that was starting to be a tell. And my husband's like, "Come on, we're going to the ER." I actually had a telemed appointment the day prior, and she misdiagnosed me. And when I told him what the diagnosis was, he's like, "Yeah, no, that's not right. We're going to the ER." And I'm like, "No, because when you have something like that, you can't make intelligent decisions anymore. Your ability to make clear choices is definitely compromised when you've got half the space for your brain to operate in." And I didn't realize that there are difference in like elasticity of brains. Biologically speaking, it has nothing to do with intelligence. And mine just seemed to, they couldn't believe that I was still walking and talking and, you know,
Oh,
semi-coherent, right? But there were some time I was starting to lose time, and it was a very interesting experience. And so now I totally relate to on the recovery side after my husband first saved my life bringing me to the ER. Secondly, my neurosurgeon, who was amazing, saved my life with his proprietary method of dealing with the subdural hematoma. And I had like a basically an instantaneous, like my personality came back, all my thought, like everything just right at when I woke up from the surgery. So that was amazing. No, full recovery, no lasting effects, and just very happy and grateful still to be alive and serving in the way that I can. Mhm.
wow. What a scary season of time. But yes,
It
we
wasn't
are.
scary for me. It was scary for my husband. I actually had no fear. it was fascinating to look back on that and like examine, I didn't have fear for life. I didn't have like when they told me that I needed the surgery, I'm like, okay, let's go, right? It was not, I had no fear, which was kind of amazing thinking about it. So I must have a clear
Wow.
conscience.
Wow. Well, peace is an amazing thing for sure. But yeah, I'm sure it was anxious for your husband and those that knew you the best. And so we're grateful that you came out of that okay and you're still able to do what you do and help so many people.
Yeah, this was
Um,
not the first time that I faced death. I was almost bo not born, or yeah, almost not born because I had my cord wrapped around my neck. And so forceps and some twists later, I was born. So that was number one. So that's life number two, right? Then life number three was when we were in Ecuador, Guayaquil, Ecuador, living as a family. My father had gone there the year prior. And my family, we all followed, expecting to be there longer than a year, but we wound up being there a year. And my mother, the ever intrepid traveler, and she was the driver of like, let's culture the kids, make sure that they get to the opera, the ballet, can, play an instrument or whatever. And so she was very the big advocate of while we're down there, let's see the country. So we went to Quito, which is the capital. We were on our way to Cuenca and we had a roadside accident when we were coming around the bend and this big Mack truck was trying to pass another vehicle and we were right there. And so it creamed us on the side. And if they hadn't been doing road work, which created they had these big piles of sand, we would have just either gone off the mountain or tumbled down the mountain, in which case I don't even want to think of what would have
mm,
happened. But right, the whole family was saved, and coincidentally, we were singing Sunday school songs on the way up. So
wow.
so that was, yep, that was the life-saving number two. And then this is, so I'm on life four basically.
That cat is rubbing off on you.
I better be careful. I only have three left, right?
Oh my gosh, that's
Well,
funny.
I can say prayer works, and yeah, I have
Yeah.
led a very magical and blessed life. Not without challenges, I will say, but God is great.
I have not met that person yet that has not had challenges. Susan, let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to your senior year in high school.
Okay.
I love doing this because it gives a real insight to what the mindset was at that time. And as you know, 17, 18-year-olds are all over the place. I just want to know where were you on that spectrum of I'm a senior. I can't wait to get out of here. I walk across and get my diploma in 14 days. I know exactly where I'm working this summer. I know exactly what I'm doing after the summer, whether it's school or a job, what have you. I can't wait to get out of here. The world is mine. Or I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to keep doing this job for a little while. I like it here. I'm going to miss all of you guys. I'm kind of sad to go, or somewhere in the middle. Where were you?
Well, it's interesting, kind of somewhere in the middle with leaning towards the first scenario, because I had decided I didn't want to go to college until I knew really truly what I wanted to study in college. I'm the oldest of three girls, and I didn't feel that my parents, could readily afford college. So I wanted to, if I was going to make them pay for it, I wanted that to be a good return on investment. I was the treasurer of the student organization. I've worked cash registers for my parents' businesses. Like, I've always been money motivated, money oriented, unashamedly, right? And unapologetically. And so I was, understanding that I had to go out and make money if I wasn't going to go to college because that was the rule of the house. Mom said, gotta, pay your way. So if you're gonna go to college, we'll pay that and you don't have to do rent or anything like that. But if you are gonna go into the working force, you got to make money and pay rent, and which was a certain percentage of, I don't remember what, maybe 10% or some derivative of that. of my gross salary. And I said, that's fine. And I followed in her footsteps, went to Catherine Gibbs, which is at the time a secretarial, now, I don't know, business school. And I actually wound up with one interview getting that was like an 8.5 month certification course. I opted to start right away that summer instead of joining my family on a trip to Italy, a family trip to Italy, which I later kind of regretted, but at the time that was just my choice. And I got, really great grades. I could type, I still type really quickly and accurately, but 120 words per hour, I mean, per minute. So, you know, Goldman Sachs hired me on one interview. And then very shortly within my first year there, as an executive assistant in the investment banking division, I decided, to get another position elsewhere that was in another department. And that was more on the bond side of things versus investment banking. And I was there for a total of 4 years. And in the first 6 months, I was given like a double figure raise. So like I think it was a 12% raise because they decided that they hadn't given me enough money on the front end. So it was
Nice.
an amazing experience. It really
Thank
was.
you.
And that's just indicative of that when you provide value, like I was always giving more than, right? More than expected. I raised my hand for additional work. I was very fast. I could do the work of like 2 to 3 people. So that was just my norm and it was recognized. And so that's really where I was in senior year with graduation. We had just had a wonderful senior prom. I was dating my high school sweetheart. We were getting serious. We would shortly thereafter get engaged and get married, but then break up 10 months later. So that was like a 10-year relationship that didn't pan out, but that's okay. Um, and I'm always an eternal optimist. I didn't meet my husband until I went back to NYU as an adult student, and now we're together 23 years. So that's again, God works in mysterious ways, and He's great.
Absolutely. So, were you at Goldman Sachs when you went to NYU?
Yes, Goldman paid for the first half of my degree. Then I went over to Reuters America going to the data side of the industry, and I was there for 8 years, but they didn't have the same tuition reimbursement that Goldman did. And then when I moved after that, I was then moved over to the insurance side of the business with Guardian Life Insurance Company, and I was there for 12 years. And at some point, I think on the way in, I negotiated that they match the Goldman tuition reimbursement so that I could get an A or a B, not just an A, and get reimbursed. And so they paid for my other half.
Very nice. Very,
Yeah.
very blessed in that area. So, tell us, when did you get the entrepreneur bug? Was there a period of time when you started testing the water while still working corporate, or was it just a lightning bolt and you made a jump out of nowhere?
I actually had a crisis of legacy. So after 20 years total in the industry, I was kind of nearing the 10 and a half year mark at Guardian. And I started to feel like I couldn't see my legacy, my footprint, my impact, and my soul was really crying out for let's do something else. Let's do something other than the corporate cubicle. And I had risen to a like starter management position, and really it was not a fit. I'm a very strong individual contributor, but to me at the time, management of other people was like herding cats because I was never taught the soft skills of emotional intelligence in my original family or even in my jobs, and nor how to influence and inspire people, right? I came at it from a more of an authoritarian based background, meaning how I was, raised up in the industry. So I didn't see where I could fit. And I was talking to a bunch of people, including my own financial advisor, Joe, at the time, and he said, well, you've always wanted to be an educator. So a lot of what I do is educating people on how money really works. So come and do what I do. I'll show you the ropes and it's unlimited income potential, which was kind of attractive being a money motivated person. But I left a six-figure corporate salary plus benefits, and my husband thought I was insane, but I didn't do it right away. To your point of, yes, I kicked the tires nights and weekends just to make sure as a mid-career changer that I wasn't going to jump into this and then find out that it's a misfit for me or my clients, right? I'm a very long-term relationship thinker and, didn't want to fail anybody, let alone myself. So I kicked the tires for like a year and a half. And then finally, July 1st, 2010, I became a full-time financial professional. And that's when challenges began.
So, all right, I want to understand that comment. So you make the jump in 2010. Obviously, it's going to have challenges, but give us the mindset there. So full of excitement, full of zeal, but the
Yep.
reality of challenges. Tell us that balance.
Yeah, so very, very, pro, let's get people on board, who do I know, having lots of conversations and connections. But you don't know what you don't know, and moving from a strong individual contributor within a corporate structure to, let's, for lack of a better term, call it eat what you kill territory, right? It was very challenging. And I recognized, like, in the first 6 months that I needed help. And that's when I started to engage coaches. I had already eaten through my, they tell you, okay, there's like such a thing as entrepreneur curve, right? Where you dip down and you have to kind of fund yourself until you get the business up and running, which I anticipated would be faster because it was a proven model. And I did everything they said to do. However, it wasn't until later when I had my signature discovery that I realized, oh, you can have like very positive thinking, but be programmed for lack. And that was what was going on for me. So even though I knew mindset wise, right, like where I was going, very focused on helping people and helping them find clarity and so forth, my programming that was, my baseline was needed to be reset, but I didn't recognize this in the beginning. So there were a couple of things that happened as a result.
So are you saying there was some negative consequences to that way of thinking?
Not that way of thinking, just that I didn't know other than mindset work, right? I didn't have the tools to change it completely until I started working with my coaches, but that process took several years. In that process, I learned how to, so in year 3, I got year 10 results. So I was able to kind of quantum leap because I was standing on the shoulders of my great coaches. However, right? It wasn't until I worked with Renee Gambino, who was my business strategist for 7 years. She doesn't coach coaches. She has a proprietary conscious connection process methodology. And when I first engaged her, she said, "Oh, I know exactly what's going on in your sales process. You're not, she identified the places, and it was towards the end of my process where people were ghosting me, they were falling out of the process, and I didn't know what was going on. And it was because I hadn't established conscious connection. And that was the start of understanding what exactly was also my issue in my own life, right? And my own money creation. And fast forward several years to the summer of 2018, where she said, I have a book for you to read. It's called Power versus Force by Sir David Hawkins, also MD, PhD. And in there, he created the map of human consciousness. And when I read that book, I realized, oh, I had read it already previously, but I wasn't the same person, right? So it had a different impact on me. And as I was reading it the second time, it's a bit texty, but in there, he calibrated, well, what are the numerical values on the spectrum of states of consciousness, meaning shame, like is 25, or joy is 600, or gratitude is 900, and so forth. meaning what state of consciousness are you in most of the time? And I realized I was in worry, anxiety, stress, right? Because of the financial pressures I was operating in, right? And there were some other circumstances that were not of my doing, but primarily I'm responsible for not having saved like 20% of my income my whole career, right? I only saved about 5, which is about the national average, right? There's a reason why I am a proponent of the planning methodology, right? That I was a client of, but I wasn't a fully compliant client of. And if I had been, we would have avoided the bankruptcy.
Well, yeah, I want to go back because there's some fascinating pieces in here, and I want to go back to thrust us forward to this period of time. So this 2010 to 2018 period, is this the same type of clientele you're working with at that time that you're working with now, or has there been a change in the last 9 years?
Yeah, there's definitely been a shift. Initially, I didn't realize how how I was actually attracting. This was very innate and unconscious. I was attracting very strong, high-powered women to my practice, whether they were single or married. And because I started speaking with the people in my immediate circles, my corporate, contacts and relationships. And so they were some pretty heavy hitters and many women. And as my practice developed, I realized, oh, I have, apparently an affinity for attracting these women. And I hired a marketer to help me get more clarity around how to, attract more of them, again, prior to doing the energy frequency work. And that was insightful because it started to shift how I was inviting people in to work with me. And then that became like 85% of my practice is high powered and highly ambitious and very intelligent women.
Okay, that makes total sense. So this period of time now, we move forward to 2018-ish. You were just mentioning bankruptcy.
Yeah, that had
Um,
happened. That had happened some like about 4 years prior to the 2018 signature discovery. And that
okay.
discovery made me realize, oh, what had contributed to the bankruptcy. I mean, there's always multiple reasons, but we had a family medical issue. Most bankruptcies are created by medical reasons, right? That you don't have the assets or the income to keep up with the medical demands. So that was a situation, a contributing factor, as well as I had just utilized my assets to help on, get established in a business. And so it was the worst possible timing. I actually write about it in a
Hmm.
2017 contributory chapter in a book called um, From Adversity to Victory. It
That's
was
your book?
I contributed to that. The compiling author is Peggy Lee Hansen, and you can find it it's actually on my author's page, I believe, in Amazon.
Nice.
Yeah. And
Very
so it was
nice.
a handful of us that got together to write those stories. And she's gone on to do a compilation series of that number of different angles. So that was the hardest thing I ever had to write, was because now I'm bearing my soul as someone in the financial industry her whole entire career that should have known better.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that affected your mindset of your own self-worth during that time. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, and there was a lot of shame and,
Mhm.
and anxiety around that. And my husband was not too happy with me, et cetera, et cetera, right? Yeah, it was like just the worst of the worst in terms of my financial journey experiences. And I'm happy to say that, you know, it, God is great, right? And so through God all things are possible. And so I, came out the other side purely because of God's grace, right? And so people still believed in my work. They still believed in the methodology that I am a proponent of. They, that somehow, despite what was going on for me in my personal life, I was able to keep that separate from my ability to serve professionally. And I credit corporate America with teaching me that, how to not be schizophrenic, but like how to keep your professional demeanor, right? Leave your personal bags at the door, so to speak, and show up to be fully in service. Fast forward now, I'm able to do that being fully authentic in all aspects, right? There's no
Mm.
professional demeanor versus fun Susan. It's all together.
Right, right. So who are you working with now? And tell us who you're working with now and how are you helping them?
Yeah, so I have two practices. I have my financial practice, and then I created in the summer of 2018, I created what has now become a wealth mentorship for fempreneurs. And that's different than, say, an advisor, right? Which is highly precise and strategic with more of a holistic, long-term, in embedding principles in the money relationship, whether that's on the let's get 2 to 3 times more on the front end or 2 to 3 times on the back end through the plan. And I do this for fempreneurs, but highly ambitious fempreneurs and business leaders. I do work with men, but that conversation is a little different. So I market exclusively to women.
Mhm. And so let's have a little fun. Let's say
Sure.
that I'm a potential client. Well, let's do this. Let's take a sampling of your clients that have come to you in financial distress. And I want you to describe how that sampling felt using just three descriptive words. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like maybe I'll give you one. Maybe hopeless is one of them. So think of three descriptive words to describe that collective clientele before they start working with you.
Hmm. Scary. Um, and this is my ideal. So this is high-powered women, remember, right? They feel scared and insecure around money. So scary, insecure, and not seen slash heard, right? They're not invited to the table. If they're 50% of us still have our spouses or the men in our lives running the financial decisions. And if we outlive the men, right, that leaves us holding the purse strings without the experience and knowledge to optimize that. And then we're in catch-up mode, right? So when I work with women, especially in a couples scenario, I invite both to the table, and it's a very educational process for both because they tend to then finally come together on the for the benefit of the team.
Trying to think of what that last word is. I heard not feeling validated, not feeling heard. What would encapsulate that into one word?
Almost like invisible.
Hmm. So scary, insecure, invisible.
Mhm.
And then they work with you. I'm sure they get amazing results. You use three words to describe how that same clientele is feeling after working with you.
They feel secure, confident, and capable.
Let's look at that for a second. So, if you're struggling in the area of wealth management, finances, household finances, working with Susan can take you from being scary to confident, from insecure to secure, from invisible to capable. Those are remarkable differences. What a transformation.
Yep.
I love that. Um, if there's somebody listening right now, and it would not surprise me at all. Um, I've estimated that our average interview gets between 600 and 800 views. Some of them have gotten over 1,000. That somebody's going to watch this in the next couple weeks, that this is going to resonate with. How could they learn more about you and find you?
So I'm on all the socials, and I'm unique with the last name Glusica. So just find me, and I know the links will be in the show notes, but it's susanglusica.com has all of them as well. And I look forward to connecting with anybody who cares to reach out.
That's awesome. Anything in the area of finance that you would suggest to you that I have not asked you?
Oh, just I want to close the loop on the whole bankruptcy thing where I became a product of my new process, my wealth mentorship process. And in that very next year in 2019, we had $1 million household year. So I am always a very fast implementator, and that was true with my own process. And I only teach what works. So if you feel like you've done the money mindset work and you still don't have the money results in the bank, it would be worth a conversation.
And that's where I can specifically recommend her because I've had that conversation with Susan. That very conversation right there that she's referring to, I highly advise it. She will open your eyes to some things that maybe even way back in your mind or something you may have forgotten about that you went through that's contributed to the very mindset that she's referring to right now. Susan, any last words of encouragement you want to leave our viewers with today?
Yes, I want you to know that by breathing alone, you are worthy of unapologetic prosperity. There's no qualifying for it. You don't have to justify it. You don't have to beg for it, right? It is yours. And it is yours. You know how they say the world is your oyster? It's that feeling when it comes to the money, the overflow, the surplus, and the abundance. And so if this is sparking something in you, resonating with you, reach out and schedule your 20-minute clarity call in which I will identify your biggest money block in 20 minutes or sooner. And I can guarantee it's not what you think it is.
And I'll back her up on that. You think 20 minutes isn't very long. She doesn't even need that long. So book the call. You'll be amazed. Susan, thank you for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, and your heart to serve those that struggle in this area. And just as a reminder, our subtitle in our group is Your Story's Not Over Yet. And you gave us at the beginning three distinct examples of how God was not done with your story yet. And you're still here. He still got you here by his grace. You're doing amazing things to help people. Thank you for being our special guest today. You're awesome.
Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
Guys, you are worthy of love, respect, and success. I appreciate each and every one of you. By the way, stay tuned. We are getting very close to that 100th interview. And it's not about the number, it's about the folks like Susan that are serving in their sweet spot, their giftedness, their passion, and it's about highlighting them. It's about bringing you value like Susan has today. But it is cool to get to 100 interviews, and we want to celebrate that because God has done that as we continue to grow as a community. Appreciate each one of you. Until next time, take care.